this is my review for The March Family Letters. The March Family Letters is a vlog-style web series about four sisters who are cataloging their lives for their mother overseas. It's based on Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. Some things I liked about this web series were in the more serious scenes, closer to the end of the web series especially. A lot of subtlety and a lot of really realistic emotion, so I thought that was really well played. But then especially closer to the beginning of the series, there was a ton of overacting that made it a lot less enjoyable for me. I felt it was a lot of theater style acting where you have to kind of overplay emotions in a very overdramatic way, but that doesn't tend to translate as well on screen as it does on stage. So a lot of the things, especially the actress who played Jo and the actress who played the youngest sister Amy, at the end when the emotion definitely balanced out a lot more. I like how they modernized the book elements. In the book, Jo is a writer, and in this web series, she's a filmmaker. What she writes is movies and screenplays, and instead of keeping it all in a journal, she keeps it all on a really old hard drive. I thought that was really cool, just in terms of still being able to get the emotional pull of when certain plot relevant things happen to those objects. The emotions that people who read the book got from that were still easily attainable. I also really liked another modern aspect, which was adding in characters of color and LGBT representation. One of the love interests in the series is changed from what was a male character in the book to a woman of color in the series. Also, Lori, who is a love interest for not one but two of the sisters, although you don't really see the fruition of that in this series, has changed to a man of color. So I thought that that was really good. It's not as common anymore for people, regardless of where they live or who they associate with, to only have friends who are only white or friends who are only straight or only heteroromantic. That was really nice, and I also really liked that two of the sisters' sexualities are changed. One of the sisters is made to be either a lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, what have you. Regardless, she's attracted to a woman. Another one of the sisters is said to be asexual and potentially aromantic. It's really common for LGBT people to want to see themselves represented on screen, and growing up we're kind of forced to see ourselves in characters that are still straight because of all these books and all these TV shows that we read and watch as children don't have those characters. In modernizing it, they also modernize the characters to be relatable to teens and adults and children that maybe didn't have that representation when they read the book series when they were younger. They can now access it through those characters that they still love in a new modern context, in a new modern media, in terms of sexuality. I also liked the usage of modern media in this web series. They're vlogging what their lives are like for their mother overseas instead of writing her letters, so I thought that the use of modern media was really appropriate. And because they changed Jo's focus from being a writer necessarily to being a film director and a screenplay writer, that definitely allowed a connection between why they were vlogging and what her passions and what her dreams are. The final thing that I did like about the series was the representation of and presentation of social anxiety. One of the sisters, Beth, is shown to have a severe fear of social interaction, and she deals with a lot of anxiety. She gets physical symptoms of that, and then it shows her choosing to deal with it in a few scenes. So I thought that was really good representation to have, because that is a real issue that a lot of people struggle with, and I thought that it definitely applies to her personality-wise. It was a good way to kind of make her a more interesting character when she doesn't really have a lot else to do within the web series. Things that I didn't like about this web series, again, just the fact that it took me so long to kind of get into it because of all the very overacting, very overdramatic portrayals of situations, especially since I'm not a huge fan of Little Women. I don't dislike it, but I've never really been attached to it as a book series. I've never really gotten through the book all the way through, to be honest. I feel like if I'd had a deeper connection to these characters from the start, it may have been easier to get into it. But for me, it took a very long time to really feel attached enough to care when things happened and to really be able to understand what the stakes were in terms of their personal situations. I also feel that some of the writing could have been, just in terms of wording and then how it was phrased, a little bit better. Sometimes I felt things were oddly said or oddly phrased or didn't really seem natural or realistic. I know with Amy, that was kind of the point of her character, is she says things in a very interesting and different way because she's trying to differentiate herself from people. I still felt sometimes it went a little too far, and then even when it was supposed to feel natural, it still didn't. I would watch this web series if you really like book adaptations, especially if you're a huge fan of Little Women. This is not a super common book for people to adapt, and is done by a lot of very talented actors and actresses. If you really like adaptations, especially modernizations of literary classics, then this might be a good web series for you to watch. If you were LGBT and growing up, you liked to headcanon your favorite characters or characters you really related to as LGBT, then this is a good series for you because, like I said, two of the sisters do fall somewhere in the LGBT spectrum. And if you want a series that you can watch in one weekend, at the time that I watched this web series, I had a little bit more time on my hands than I usually did. It was a snow day. Because it was a snow day, I was able to watch all of the series in one day. But obviously, if you don't have the time for that, marathon this maybe over a weekend or maybe over a few days is definitely doable. If you want a single plot motivation, you like there to be one goal and everybody in the series is kind of pushing towards that one goal, you're not really going to find it in this web series. It's more of a slice of life thing where they film their own trials and tribulations, and not everybody's really working towards the same thing necessarily. If you're very picky about the acting style, like I've said, it takes a long time for them to kind of settle in from a more theater style of acting. If that's something that's really important for you in terms of how you view it, and if nostalgia and wanting to see what happens isn't going to save the series for you, if it's just acting style all or nothing, then I might skip this one and look at something that has maybe actors who are a lot more experienced. Is there even three? I don't even know. The four of them.